As Pennsylvania counties continue to work towards reopening, churches are also trying to adapt to allowing parishioners back inside the houses of worship. Father Brian Clark, the pastor of Holy Rosary Church in Hazelton, says weekday masses are now being held Mondays and Wednesdays at 12:05 p.m. and one weekend mass will be held starting this Sunday at 10 a.m.
We are going to use a reservation system at first, so we just get a better idea of how many people will be coming in and how we can best accommodate them to keep the social distancing and everything else that's so important and a part of this. So I know other parishes are doing things a little bit differently, but I'm hearing most parishes are easing into this and trying to really do everything they can to make sure those safeguards are properly in place before we begin. Because the important thing is that we need to keep that 6-foot social distancing. So you'll notice many changes, like we won't be singing at Mass, which will seem odd at first. But again, the CDC is telling us that's the quickest way for this virus to become airborne. So again, as the Bishop directs us, we're trying to avoid that if at all possible at this time. So we continue to move forward, and when it's allowed, then we'll move to that point. There's also a few other things too. That social distancing, the Bishop mentioned 4 points. That the second is to wear masks. That will be a requirement when you arrive here. We won't be allowed to have anyone enter the church into this public space and jeopardize the health of anyone else. And then sanitize. We'll be sanitizing. That's the other reason why we're starting slowly. We have to make sure we sanitize before, right after everyone leaves, so we get ready for the next group to come in. And how we do that, sanitizing not only the pews where they sit, the door handles, everything that can possibly be touched. Even Holy Communion, the way it's distributed is very different. That will be explained when you come for Mass. And then the last part of it is, so I want to make sure I got all four, the social distancing, the wearing of the face mask, the sanitization, and then that whole thing about if you are ill to stay home or in one of those high-risk groups, such as the elderly, those with a pre-existing health condition, or those who are either just sick or in contact with someone who was sick. So there are many reasons, and that is why the Bishop continues to keep the dispensation in place where you're not required to attend Mass on a weekly basis. So that requirement is not there. So the hope is that you would continue to participate via the televised Masses and social media and all the rest.
Can you talk about the physical layout of the pews with the stickers and the arrows?
Great, and the way that we're trying to do this is, the Bishop mentioned too, and it's a plan that we have in our diocese, is first of all to keep that social distancing, that 6 feet in between each person, unless you come as a family and you're living together. But what will happen is those who are not, we have to at all times, when they enter, when they exit, when they come up for Holy Communion, to always be able to have some system in place where we maintain that 6-foot distance. So we'll have 2 empty pews in between every pew where we have people seated, and even within that pew we're going to mark off with tape at least 6 feet in between, so it'll probably be just on the ends, except for a longer pew where we might be able to have one more in the middle, or we'll just have families in those pews. So we're still looking at all of that. So when people come up for Holy Communion, they'll be very much directed. We'll have ushers, and that's another part of this plan, is to make sure we have enough volunteers that can safely direct everyone, 1 pew at a time, to come up and receive Holy Communion. And what will happen is that the priest or the deacon will drop that consecrated host in your hand. So the hope is that you would be willing to receive it on the hand. If there is a requirement that you feel it's absolutely necessary to receive on the tongue, then we have a procedure for that too. We'll have to sanitize immediately after, and that they're asked to come up last, and other things like that that will be explained when you arrive. But that other thing too is that Holy Communion will be distributed after the Mass is completed, so that when someone comes up and receives, that they immediately go to the parking lot and depart the parking lot, so there's no social gathering at the back of the church, outside the church, or even in the parking lot. It gets people to exit, and we'll have a specifically marked exit, which will be different from the entrance. And so we're trying to get all that signage in place to be as clear as we can to direct people.
To register for the Masses, call the church at 570-454-6693. Father Clark is also the pastor of Holy Name of Jesus Church in West Hazelton. He says the gradual opening applies to that parish. Contact the church for more information.